on education and water and land. We have one bill on this longer agenda that we will have this joint committee hearing. Today's date is March 11th. The time is 2:03 p.m. and we are in conference rooms 309 and 430. Now we're going to have Vice Chair go over some ground rules. Vice Chair Capella.
In order to allow for as many people to testify as possible, there will be a 2-minute time limit per testifier. Please keep yourself muted and your video off while awaiting to testify and after your testimony is complete. The Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with technical staff only. Please use the chat only for technical issues. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. In the event of a catastrophic network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision-making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. Please refrain from any profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from the hearing without the ability to rejoin. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So we have SB 806, Department of Education, Voluntary Action and Land Transfers. First up, we have from the AG's office, Melissa Coloni, Deputy Attorney General, providing comments. Who is not here. And we also have Department of Education, AS Tanaka, providing testimony in support.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella. Thank you very much for your time. We stand by our submitted testimony on behalf of the superintendent, and thank you very much for your efforts. We are making good progress on this issue. Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Tanaka. That's all I have on my testifiers list. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this particular proposal? Seeing none, members of the Committee on Education, are there any questions? Seeing none, Chair Tarnas.
Members of Water and Land Committee, do you have any questions for our testifier? Representative Kobayashi.
What is the use for the land? Sorry.
Please ask the question again.
What is the use for the land?
Hello, Rep. Kobayashi. It is actually two uses. One is we are installing a handicap ramp at the front of the school to provide ADA accessibility. And secondly, at Mililani High School, there is a walkway, pathway that cuts through the campus. We have worked with the Mililani Town Association. The pathway actually goes into a tunnel and comes back out on the other side. And at times it's difficult to manage that access, and there's been some issues with vagrancy in that tunnel. So we will now be the ones that manage that walkway and have security control through that area. The other strip of land wraps around the front, and that allows us to make the improvements that we need to on another part of the property. But it's really security and safety and the ADA accessibility.
Thank you, Representative Kobayashi. Are there questions from other members? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Woodson.
Thank you, Chairman. Quick recess for decision making. Recess. Goodness. Bill, members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns before I give the recommendation?
Chair Woodson. Chair Woodson.
We can't hear you again.
Okay.
turn on your microphone. Representative Okimoto,
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to declare a potential conflict of interest.
what is your potential conflict?
I am a director and the treasurer of the Middle Town Association, the Board of Directors.
No conflict.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, members voting on SB 806. The chair's recommendation is to pass this bill effective the date to July 1st, 2050. Education Committee members, any questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on SB 806, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Bellotti? Excused. Representative DeQuate?
Aye.
Representative Ganadin?
Aye.
Representative Gates?
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto? Excused. Representative Ono? Representative Quinlan? Excused. Representative Takayama? Representative Yamane? Excused. Representative Okimoto?
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members.
This is the same recommendation to the members of the Water and Land Committee to pass Senate Bill 806 with amendments. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass Senate Bill 806 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Kong.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Representative Ono.
Aye.
Representative McDermott.
Yes.
The measure is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Woodson. The Water and Land Committee is now adjourned, and you're going to continue your hearing on your own. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recess. Next up, we have SB 220 SD1, Department of Education and Service Learning. First up on our testifiers list and our only testifier on Zoom is Department of Education OSIT providing comments. Dr. Kishimoto.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, Raymond Fugino, Acting Director for the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design. On behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto, the department stands on its written testimony, offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We also have testimony from Judith Clark from Hawaii Youth Service Network in support. And we have individual testimony from 3 individuals, Carolyn Funitake, Kristen Samonte, and Jaden Francesca, all providing testimony in support. That's all I have on my testifiers list. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this particular proposal? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to SB 224, Department of Education, CTE, and general exemptions. First up on our testifiers list, we have is Dr. Kishimoto, Department of Education, OSID, providing testimony, providing comments.
Hi, yes, again, Raymond Fujino, Acting Director, Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design. On behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto, the department stands on written testimony, offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have testimony from the Hawaii Teachers Association, providing testimony in support. They are not present. That's all I have on my testifiers list. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this particular proposal? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? I have a quick question for the Department of Education. DOE, if you're still here.
Yes, go ahead. I have Specialist CT Specialist Troy Suioka. Thank you.
Can you please explain, generally speaking, the GE process and what are the primary factors that go into deciding as to whether or not a student is approved for that type of exemption?
Well, currently, they can, there's a number of factors, and they can actually choose pretty much any reason that they want to, GE into a school. So technically, they could GE into a school based upon a CTE program that they want to enter into.
Is there, when you say there's a number of factors, can you kind of give us an idea as to what factors go into whether or not a student is granted access to a school that's not in this geographic area?
So that's based upon the principal's discretion, and each principal will make their own decision based upon the GE application that is submitted.
Okay, but and there's no GE process specifically for CTE.
Not specifically for CTE, but you could put it on the application as the reason to GE into a school.
Okay, thank you for that. Why I think that this bill is so important is because there seems to be a lot of growing interest in expanding rigorous career and technical education opportunities through educational curricula. And so because of that, I think that this bill is important. Also, when you see or when you hear about the highest performing schools, one of the main components that they have is that they offer robust and broad CTE offerings that have high curricula that encourage high order thinking. And so for these reasons, I think that this proposal is important, although per your testimony, there is a general process for these types of exceptions.
Correct. So that's why we offered comments and the amendment to amend the language that is being submitted.
Okay, thank you so much. We received your comments. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to the next bill, SB 242, SD2, Computer Science Curriculum. First up, we have is Department of Budget and Finance providing comments. They are not present. We have testimony from Department of Education, Dr. Kishimoto.
Good afternoon, Raymond Fujino, Acting Director, Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design. Again, on behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto, we stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Hawaii Kids Can, David Miyashiro, providing testimony in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, Hawaii Kids Can stands on our written testimony in strong support of SB 242. Monday's Star Advertiser article covered the impact of computer science programs in local elementary schools that support development in a number of areas, including social skills, exercise, and logical thinking. This speaks to the holistic value CS education offers. For example, Hawaii uses the Computer Science Teachers Association's K-12 CS standards. At the elementary level, standards include fundamental skills such as working respectfully and responsibly with others online, explaining what passwords are and how to use strong passwords, and using data to propose cause and effect relationships, predict outcomes, or communicate an idea. I think we can all agree that these skills are becoming more and more fundamental. CS also has numerous economic benefits for students, and this generation of students will have many more options to work remotely from Hawaii for jobs in coding, cybersecurity, and IT. The future is here, and companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon have already committed $300 million nationally to support computer science education. We strongly believe Hawaii students deserve the chance to thrive in this future. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have code.org, Katie Hendrickson, providing testimony in support.
Yes, aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, members of the committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. I see that the students who are taking computer science in high school are continuing to increase. However, we're not seeing the increased diversity. We're not seeing a massive change in making sure that students are represented in computer science classes, just like they are in the schools. And so this bill is absolutely needed for kids to take computer science, to be exposed to it in early grades before they get to those middle school years when they choose to self-select into courses, when they form perceptions about what courses are for them, what courses are not for them, what subjects they want to study. And so ensuring that every student has those opportunities early on are absolutely crucial for diversifying that pipeline and for ensuring that more and more students are taking this in high school. Basically, if we are able to get rid of that gap and to ensure that students are represented, that 50% of a high school computer science class is girls, and the students of different racial and ethnic backgrounds are also represented in high school computer science courses, we're going to see the increase that we need to help to diversify the economy and to get more students in that field. We strongly support this, and I'm very excited to see what Hawaii is doing with computer science education going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We also received testimony from Ms. Kealoha from the Department of Education and Support, Workforce Development Council, Ms. Tasaka, in support. We also have testimony from Hawaii Society of Technology and in Education in support. We have testimony from the Hawaii Society. Oh, that's duplicate. We also have testimony from Microsoft Corporation in support. Computational Thinkers also in support. Geeks for Good in support. And we have testimony from about 9 individuals, all in support. Is there anyone else here who can provide testimony on this bill? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will take a quick recess.
with the 2 o'clock agenda, moving into the resolutions. HCR 12, HR 13. Our first testifier is from the DOE, Beth Shimfla Hem. Anyone from the DOE?
Maybe to say this.
Aloha.
Oh, perfect.
Hey, this is Beth Schimmelfinnig. I'm the Director for Civil Rights Compliance. I'm testifying on behalf of Dr. Christina Kishimoto. And thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony. We stand on our written testimony in support of this resolution.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have Young-hee Overly, AAUW of Hawaii, in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Usin, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. My name is Young-hee Overly. I'm the Public Policy Chair for AAUW of Hawaii. We stand on our written testimony in strong support, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Up next, University of Hawaii, Jennifer Rose, with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella. The university supports the intent of this bill, and we are available for questions. We stand on our written testimony.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Rose. Up next, Every Voice Coalition, Nora Gallo, in support.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Nora Gallo. I am co-executive director of the Every Voice Coalition, and I'm grateful to be able to offer support, to testify in support today of HCR 12. However, I do want to address that with the framework of this resolution, the unique challenges that universities have faced in implementing the final rule, and what they await with sort of coming regulations that have been announced from the Biden administration. And although I do want to address that the focus there remains per usual on schools. So according to anonymous system-wide survey results from the University of Hawaii in 2019, approximately 60% of students reported that sexual violence at the university was problematic, and reported an increase in students experiencing sexual assault and harassment since 2017. According to the Institutional Research, Analysis and Planning Office, in the fall of 2019, there were a total of 49,977 total students enrolled across UH campuses. From those survey statistics that I previously mentioned, 12.7% of students reported experiencing sexual harassment. Therefore, 6,347 students were impacted. 21.3% of students reporting experienced domestic violence. Therefore, 10,645 students were impacted. 7.2% of students reported experiencing sexual assault. Therefore, 3,598 students were impacted. With that, I do want to raise the concern relative to the scope of the resolution focused solely on the state law corollary to Title IX, because as we know, only an estimated 10% of student survivors will come forward to report through official channels. Without addressing the complexities of reporting and roadblocks to achieving justice through reporting, we are simply continuing a decades-old conversation where the needle has not moved. Addressing this issue must expand into addressing the lack of options available for survivors. Therefore, I do request the framework of the amendments and legislation to be addressed by the task force to be broadened, as I noted in my written testimony. Furthermore, as it currently stands, the individuals to be on the task force do not center those most impacted, students and survivors, and nor does it offer a solid platform for experts in survivor advocacy and victim services to offer recommendations to what can and should be done for survivors. Therefore, I request the task force to be expanded to include those voices. Just to wrap up, we cannot address sexual violence and subsequent policy solely through the lens of an adjudicatory process. We must broaden the scope to understand how this violence happens in the first place, how to prevent it, and the multitude of ways we can respond to offer options to achieve justice through other avenues. Students are living on your campuses every day. The clock is ticking, and time must not be wasted in seeking solid solutions. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Up next, we have Anna Chua, also in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. I stand by my written testimony in support of HCR 12. My name is Anna, and I'm an undergraduate student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. House Bill 691 provided opportunities to increase trauma-informed awareness and resources to support survivors of sexual assault and violence while reducing incidence rates. It was disappointing to see that the bill did not move forward, as it reveals larger cracks in our system whereby there is perpetual marginalization of survivors and lack of care for those vulnerable to the shortcomings of federal regulation like Title IX. HCR 12 is a window to center student needs and ensure that trauma-informed and survivor-centered care and support are institutionalized. The implementation of a task force may not end rape culture and sexual violence that's become endemic on our college campuses, but it will make it loud and clear that violence and assault that occur will be prioritized on a systemic level. And I think it's also really imperative that the task force includes the voices of those directly affected and most impacted, who are students and survivors of sexual violence. In a place where sexual violence occurs, I think it's really important that survivors and students are centered so that solutions that uphold justice can be carved out. And additionally, this means that experts from sexual and domestic violence prevention centers, coalitions that work to end rape culture, those who practice trauma-informed awareness and therapy and cultural sensitive forms of justice must also be included in the conversation. To wrap up, I think it's really important that we move beyond being reactionary and instead push to uproot the many sources of sexual and gender-based violence while ensuring that systemic and institutionalized silencing of survivors are no longer. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you for being here. That's all I have on my Zoom testifiers list. We also have the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission in support, Planned Parenthood Votes Northwest and Hawaii in support, Hawaii Women's Coalition in support, Women's Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support, Imoa Alliance in support, and a handful of other individuals in support. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? I have a question for UH, Jen Rose. Hi. Yeah.
Hello, Vice Chair.
Hello, thank you. I was recently informed that the confidential advocates that were housed at UH's POW violence program were recently moved under the auspices of the Office of Institutional Equity. Is that true? And if so, can you explain why those changes were made?
No, I think that it's probably related to the individual person who you might have in mind. The program wasn't moved at all. The advocates that are under my office are through my system program money. The individual that is in one of those positions, a senior advocate, Leslie Kabingabang, used to work at the Women's Center. So she is now working in the system program office, but not through a transfer of funds or as far as I know, a change of program on the Manoa Women's Center side, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. I have one more question for Every Voice Coalition, Nora Gallo.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you, Ms. Gallo. Can you reiterate exactly how long it's likely going to take the Biden administration to undo the Trump administration's changes to Title IX and explain what that process will look like?
Of course, thank you for the question. So the undoing of a process like Title IX, especially with the upending that occurred with their most recent final rule, is not as simple as the executive order that Biden brought forth recently. It's going to begin a review process that will not have a quick turnaround. It'll likely be probably 2 to 3 to even 4 years into the end of Biden's administration, where we will be able to have a new final rule. It is, however, unclear what will happen sort of in the meantime and what that process will look like. I will share that I am at the tables in those conversations and have heard that it is not something that will happen very quickly. So I do want to reiterate in my testimony that the clock is ticking and there are students that are affected by this every day, and we have the opportunity to step up and offer resources that are not currently available at the federal level. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all the questions that I have. Moving on to HCR 6, HR 7. We have a number of individuals in support, including the Hawaii Youth Services Network, Judith Clark, but there are no people that are asking to testify via Zoom. Is there anyone else that would like to testify that is here that I don't see on my list? If not, moving on to quick recess. Moving into HCR 8, HR 9. We have a number of individuals, once again, support Judith Clark, Hawaii Youth Services Network, Marianne Omerod, Melanie Lee, Malia Marquez, also in support, but no testifiers wishing to testify via Zoom. Are there any here that are not on my list that would like to testify? Seeing none, moving on to HCR 9. Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks. Nicole Wu in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. Thanks for this opportunity. We stand on our testimony in support of this resolution. Thanks.
Thank you for being here. Up next, Hawaii After School Alliance, Paula Adams.
Hi, Chair and Vice Chair. Thank you for letting us testify in support of this resolution. As you may know, the community school strategy is key to support our kids and families. The community schools strategy makes the schools the hub of the community, where partners bring support to the whole child as well as family support. So we are happy to see this measure being here, and we hope that passes, and we are here to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you for being here. That's all I have on my Zoom testifiers list. However, we do have the Hawaii After School Alliance, Paula PD in support, Hawaii Public Health Institute, Jalen Murakami in support, Our Revolution Hawaii, David Molinex in support, Office of Hawaiian Affairs in support, and Blue Zones Project in support, as well as a number of other individuals, all in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, questions? Seeing none, moving on to HCR 10. Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks. Nicole Wu.
Thanks again for allowing me to testify, Chair and Vice Chair and committee members. And we'll stand on our testimony in support of these resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Hawaii After School Alliance, Paula Adams.
Yeah, thanks again for letting us testify. Yeah, we stand in support of the resolution, and we are here to answer any questions that you might have related to after school programs.
Thank you. That's all I have on my Zoom testifiers list, but we do have a number of individuals in support as well, including Hawaii After School All-Stars of Hawaii in support, He'e Coalition in support, Our Revolution Hawaii in support, and about 10 other individuals also in support. Members, are there any questions?
Quick recess.
Quick recess. with HR 11, once again, we have Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks in support, along with a number of individuals as well. D. Kaipo Hanakave, Heidi Teraoka in support, and then that's all. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HCR 32 and HR 25. Up first, I have Department of Human Services, HMS Leah Diaz.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm Leah Diaz. The Department of Human Services stands on our written testimony with comments, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for being here. Up next, I have Shelford Canton.
Hi, sorry, it took me a while to get unmuted here. Aloha, my name, I'm Shelford Cantan. I am one of the, I think I am the only NOMC certified person in the state right now. And I fully support this bill. I've had a number, this resolution, I've had a number of parents in the DOE, parents of blind children who have called me and asked me if I could give private lessons to their students, to their children. And I'm unfortunately, because of my job position, I can't go out and I can't go and work with those students, but I do support this resolution, and I do encourage the Department of Education to come up with recruiting, going out and recruiting people with structured discovery backgrounds. So I am in full support of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Up next with HR 25, Katie Kem. In support, not present. Next, we have another individual, Virgil Stinnett. In support. Okay, not present. That's all I have on my Zoom testifiers list. We have a number of individuals, including Kathy Betts, Director of Department of Human Services, offering comments. Kirby Shaw, Disability and Communications Access Board in support. Stacy Fong in support. And with HR 25, a number of individuals also in support. That's all I have on my list. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Seeing none, moving on to HCR 52 and HR 41. Up first, Department of Education, Dr. Kishimoto.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. Chair Woodson and Vice Chair Capella. I'm Heidi Armstrong, Department of Education, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto. The department stands on its written testimony offering comments. The department stands that we have existing policies and systems of record keeping to ensure that records of incidences of bullying are properly updated and effectively utilized. And these have all been shared in our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. That's all I have on my Zoom testifiers list. We also have a number of individuals in support. University of Hawaii, Hea Okimoto in support, and Mana Iketani in support. Through HR 41, we have two other individuals also in support. Kayla Lim Tam and Ashley Galagak in support. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, moving on to HCR 53, DOE OTM Admin, Sean Arai.
Hi, this is Heidi Armstrong again. I'll be testifying on behalf of the Department of Education and Superintendent Kishimoto. We stand on our written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for being here. Up next, Laverne Moore, HSTA.
Oh, wait, hold it. Aloha. Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Kari Rosenberg, President of the Hawaii Teachers Association. Sugars, where did my thing go? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. The comments we have that we agree that lowering class size is very important. It is hard to call for the reduction of class size when the reporting of our class sizes is wrong when reported by the department, as it is screwed by them counting teachers who are not classroom teachers and dividing it by the total number of students enrolled at a school. It should be based on the actual class roster to be a valid class size. At my high school, our core teachers who teach English, math, science, social studies, they have class sizes that range from 40 to 50, and they have a total number between 150 and 200 students. How can you really give a good education when you are overloaded with students? You do not give them the proper education they deserve. So the HSC believes because lowering class sizes yield higher achievement, we ask to support this resolution and request that the Department of Education accurately report class sizes to the legislature as outlined in this resolution to effectively plan for the achievement of our students. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. That's all I have on my Zoom testifiers list. On our HR companion, HR 42, we also have John Bickel, individual in support. Is there anyone else that is wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none. Members, are there any questions? Okay, moving on. HCR 54, we have DOE, Dr. Kishimoto.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Capella, Chair Woodson, and the members of the committee. Again, Raymond Fujino, on behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto, we stand on our written testimony supporting the intent of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. That's all I have on my testifiers list. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, moving on to HCR 55. DOE, Dr. Kishimoto, providing comments. DOE. Anyone from DOE providing comments on HCR 55?
Good afternoon. Sorry, I was having trouble with my microphone. Good afternoon, Chair Woodson and Vice Chair Capella and members of the committee. I'm Brian Ryder with the assessment section in the Department of Education. On behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto, we stand on our written testimony with comments, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for being here. We also have Laverne Moore, HSTA, in support.
Aloha. Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Kari Rosenberg, President of HSTA. We stand on our written testimony, and I have a few comments. Testing under normal situation is stressful. Having a school year with COVID diminished the quality of instructions for those students in impoverished communities. Students were not equipped with the proper technology and did not get the continual in-person instruction. In Hawaii, a typical student who attends school from kindergarten to grade takes over 100 mandated standardized tests. In contrast, most countries that outperform the United States on international exams test students only 3 times during their entire school career. Please urge the DOE to move Hawaii towards its international peers by requesting a waiver from state testing to allow our teachers to focus on actual teaching and learning, not test preparation, especially during this pandemic. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. I have Susan Piccola Davis in support. Susan, are you there? I think you're on mute.
There we go. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Capella, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this resolution. I strongly support the Department of Education requesting a waiver from standardized testing for the school year 2020-2021. Currently, the U.S. Department of Education is offering some flexibility to states, which includes extending the testing window and moving assessments to the summer or fall, giving the assessments remotely where feasible, and shortening the state assessment to make testing more feasible to implement and prioritize in-person learning time. Currently, the Department of Education is offering a shortened test. There's no indication that the window is going to move towards the summer or the fall, which causes me to think that the reason that there's such a push right now to get elementary schools back, children back in school, is due to this testing window that is being proposed. As stated before, just having annual testing preparation is stressful for both teachers and students in a normal school year. With all the upheaval this year, concerns for safety, social distancing, adequate PPE, cleaning supplies, I could go on and on. It is predictable that adding another layer of stress will just cause more of the same. Currently, complexes and schools have been directed to bring back as many students in person instruction as you can. But due to the lack of space, schools have been told to manage this social distancing of 6 feet as best as you can. At this point, the drive to bring back students in person instruction appears to be driven only by these tests. They're not going to tell us any more than we already know. Students are continuously monitored through the use of iReady for math and English since the beginning of the school year. These are called universal screeners. They gauge where a student is on their spectrum of learning. So I don't know what we're trying to find out by using a standardized test. Are we trying to prove that the universal screeners are accurate? The Department of Education has already identified learning loss as a major result of the COVID effect on shift for this year. Plans to address this are already being discussed. Let's please at least defer the testing as long as possible to give the U.S. Department of Education time to reconsider their stance on standardized testing for this school year. Rather than insisting the testing be done by a certain date, at least provide an alternative plan to request extension of completion until the fall. It's the least we can expect. That is in the parameters of the US DOE and is allowing that currently. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's all that I have on my Zoom testifiers list. We have a number of individuals all in support for our HCR 55, as well as in support for HR 44. Is there anyone else not on my list that would like to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions?
Sure, quick question.
Yes, Chair Woodson.
Thank you, Chair. HSTA, please.
Yes, okay. Wait. Oh, okay, I found my video. Okay. I'm representing the president. I'm Laverne Moore. I'm the teacher lobbyist.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your comments with regards to international competitiveness. And I concur with you that when you look at the highest performing systems, not all of them, but most certainly most of them do not rely on standardized tests. They allow teachers to figure out how to get kids to the level in which they need to in terms of what's set forth by the governing board or governing boards of that institution. And so my question is, has HSTA brought up this fact to the Department of Education or the Board of Education? And if so, what has the responses been?
Under our president, Corey Rosenberg, and even the presidents before, we have brought this up over and over again, comparing the United States with the European countries who far outpace our students. And to no avail, we're still where we are. And this is something that we strongly believe in, that we do too many testing and we should leave it up to the teacher. I'm a special ed teacher, 50 years teaching, and I strongly believe I do better than standardized teaching. When I presented my curriculum and according to how they perform, I believe they're doing well. The standardized testing, a number of those questions are not cultural relevant for Hawaii. And I agree with your point, totally. But our president, Corey Rosenberg, would love to have this conversation with you because he did go to Europe on an international testing conference with the NEA and came back with all the data, but to no avail, we're still where we are.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Moore.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, Rep. Okimura.
Also to HSTA. So thank you for sharing your testimony on the standardized testing. I had a question. I'm not sure if you could answer with respect to, with the standardized testing comes federal funding. So how does President Rosenlee and others from the association address the issue that without the standardized testing, we would lose major federal funding to our school systems?
I would have the president respond to you, but I know at the national level, that was a national NEA movement on testing. And I'll have him follow up with you and with the NEA on this, because the NEA is also against the numerous testing that is being done by the school systems.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have a question for DOE.
Great.
Is there anyone from DOE?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, I'm here. Brian Ryder.
Thank you. Have any changes been made to testing protocols in public schools because of COVID-19?
Certainly, there's more attention made to make sure that all students that are being tested are social distancing, wearing masks. There's measures in place to make sure that the testing environment has been sanitized prior to testing. And so we've provided some guidance to schools, test coordinators, and to test administrators on how to best set up a test environment so that all students can be tested safely.
Thank you. Any other questions?
For the DOE.
Rep.
Yes.
Gannon?
Following up on Representative Capella as well as Representative Okamoto's line of questioning, you note in the testimony the department is working on federal accountability determinations waiver application. So you're putting in a waiver application. I assume many other states are doing the same. Is there current federal legislation moving that would sort of preclude this resolution?
I'm not aware of anything at the moment. I have heard there being some talks and discussions about proposing something, so it's possible, but I'm not aware of anything currently making its way through the legislature.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we're going to continue on. Moving on to HCR 60, HR 49, DOE. Dr. Kishimoto.
Good afternoon, Raymond Fujino, on behalf of Superintendent Kishimoto again. The department stands on its written testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Susan Picola Davis in support.
Good afternoon, committee members. I would like to say that I strongly support this bill with some comments to the historical nature of how Acellus Learning Accelerator became the online distance platform used during this school year due to COVID and the Department of Education's inability to provide an online curriculum for those who chose distance learning for their children. Historically, Acellus was used for seniors to make up credits to graduate. It was never intended to be used as a replacement curriculum for distance learning. Since it was already being used by the DOE, purchasing additional licensing was the quickest, easiest, and cost-effective route to provide this distance learning. I have included a lot more detail in my written testimony, but I think that what's important is that the Board of Education had presented a resolution to the Department of Education defining distance learning as education provided by a live teacher through the use of technology. Acellus was already being identified as a problem by parents whose children were forced to use it for instruction. There was no teacher or class contact, purely monitored by parents. The discontinued use of Acellus will happen at the end of this school year. However, there are still students, parents, families that are having to use Acellus as the only method for distance learning. The Board of Education voted unanimously to rid the schools of the Acellus learning. There are so many flaws in how this came about. Mostly it has to do with the lack of contingency plans and the lack of hearing what was being said by parents. Pages and pages of written testimony had to be submitted to the Board of Education before any action was taken. There still is not a distance learning platform to be provided for distance learning. Currently, our teachers are bending over backwards to provide education through technology by Google Meets and Google Classroom. Some teachers are providing both distance and in-person learning simultaneously. The pandemic has actually made heroes our teachers. They have put aside their lives for our children. Their innovation, teamwork, and dedication will enable our children to succeed. Teachers should be commended for what they have accomplished through these trying times. With all the mixed communication, direction, pivoting demands, they are the true ambassadors for our children. It will take time and collaboration to develop our homegrown curricula, but it's worth the time. Curriculum is not static, neither is instruction or testing. It may not be that easy task, but is something that needs to be looked at. Do I think there would have been a problem if Acellus wasn't part of the picture? No. The additional expense of purchasing additional licenses was not a well thought out decision. Quick, easy, and cost effective doesn't always lead to the best solution in situations like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davis. That's all I have on my Zoom testifiers list. We do have a number of individuals in support for both HCR 60 and HR 49. Is there anyone else that's wishing to testify on these two measures? Seeing none, Representative Okimoto.
Question for the DOE, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Raymond. I had a quick question. So when we finally are able to send our Kiki back to schools, will they still be needing the use of SLS? Will we be using SLS?
Well, the SLS currently, the licenses are up to June 30th of 2021. So that is still the school's, my understanding is the school's choice in order, if they want to continue using it or not at this point.
The majority of them are being used right now for remote learning. I heard earlier that there was some for the seniors who are trying to catch up, but the majority of this through COVID has just been through remote learning, correct? My daughters are using it remotely.
Correct. There are still schools currently utilizing it because the agreement was till June 30th.
Okay, and there's no plans after that. So when the KK are able to go back to school, there will not be a high need of the use of SLS. Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's what we're hoping. Yes.
I as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we will recess for decision making.
Thank you, members, reconvening for decision-making on the remainder of bills and resolutions that we have on the agenda today. First up, we have as SB 220 SD1, Department of Education and Service Learning Curriculum. Members, per the DOE testimony, it seems like they already offer an array of these types of learning opportunities. And so we will defer this proposal for now, Next, moving on, members, to SB 224, CTE and geographic exemptions. Members, I would simply like to defect the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on SB 224, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Bellotti? Aye. Representative DeCoit?
Aye.
Representative Ganadin?
Aye.
Representative Gates?
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto?
Aye.
Representative Ono?
Aye.
Representative Quinlan?
Aye.
Representative Takayama?
Aye.
Representative Yamane? Excused. Representative Okimoto?
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 242 SD2, computer science curriculum. Members, I would like to pass this out with the HD1, defective the date July 1st, 2050, technical non-substantive changes. Any questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on SB 242 SD2, Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Are there any noes? Any reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members.
Voting on HCR 12, HR 13. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. I would like to make several amendments to this resolution to make it more focused on strengthening protections for students rather than using the Trump administration's revisions to Title IX as a guideline for discussion. So first, I would like to change the title of the resolution to be convening a task force to address implementation of Hawaii state law corollary to Title IX to strengthen Hawaii's efforts to end campus-based sexual violence and gender discrimination. Next, on page 3, just before the resolve clauses, I would like to add a few setup statements that note statistics that highlight the severity of the problem of campus-based sexual violence, such as the statistic that 1 in 10 students across the United States will experience sexual violence while attending an institution of higher education, and stats that show the increase in sexual violence at the University of Hawaii over the last 2 years. Additionally, I would like to broaden the Title IX task force members to include UH's POW violence program, the Hawaii Coalition to End Domestic Violence, the Sex Abuse Treatment Center, and the Every Voice Coalition, which will guarantee that survivor voices are included in the task force's deliberation. I would also like to enumerate certain items for the task force's deliberation in the resolution itself, including the following: the availability of resources for survivors of campus-based sexual violence, adequacy of trauma-informed training, information sharing about sexual violence protocols and services for survivors, policies adopted in other states to strengthen protections for survivors of campus-based sexual violence, recommendations contained in the Title IX report published by the Legislative Reference Bureau in 2019, and strategies for improving protections for transgender students in Hawaii's public schools. Finally, I am recommending that we add an additional resolve clause to this measure to request the task force work with student organizations to obtain feedback from survivors of campus-based sexual violence during its deliberations.
No.
Members, are there any questions? Chair Woodson for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the recommendation voting on HCR 12, HR 13 is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any noes or reservations? Recommendation is adopted, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to HCR 6, HR 7, recommendation is to pass as is. Are there any questions? Chair Woodson for the vote.
Thank you, members. Members voting on HCR 6, HR 7, the chair's recommendation is to pass unamended, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any noes or reservations? Thank you. Members, any other noes or reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Voting on HCR 8, HR 9, Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. On page 2, lines 36 through 37, I'm recommending that we replace the phrase incorporating more diverse with the phrase expanding access to. And on line 37, I'm recommending that we change the word as to the phrase that fulfill. That way, rather than potentially calling for the creation of additional core requirements that might create potential conflicts with scheduling and graduation requirements, the resolution will call for expanding access to Hawaiian cultural content to fulfill core course requirements that already exist. I would also like to add an additional resolutions clause to this measure that asks the DOE's Office of Hawaiian Education to identify public school teachers who have received or would like to receive training in Hawaiian language and cultural to increase access to instruction in Hawaiian cultural content. Are there any questions? Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on HCR 8, HR 9, the chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any reservations or no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to HCR 9, HR 10, recommendation is to pass as is. Are there any questions? Chair for the vote.
Thank you, members voting on HCR 9, HR 10. The chair's recommendation is to pass as is, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any noes or reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on, thank you, Chair. Moving on to HCR 10, HR 11, recommendation is to pass as is. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, Chair Woodson for the vote.
Thank you, members voting on HCR 10, HR 11. The chair's recommendation is to pass unamended, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any reservations or noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to HCR 32, HR 25, recommendation is to pass as is. Members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, Chair Woodson for the vote.
Thank you. Members voting on HCR 32, HR 25, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Are there any noes or reservations? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to HCR 52, HR 41, recommendation is to pass with amendments. On page 3, line 11, I would like to add the words or color so that the line reads race or color. Also on page 3, line 19, I would like to add the phrase or national origin so that the line reads ancestry or national origin. These two changes will make the resolution's text align with anti-discrimination policies adopted by the state agencies, including the DOE. Also on page 3, line 25, I would like to strike the word disciplinary. Finally, I would like to add 2 items to the list of non-punitive actions that the resolution calls for in dealing with the roots of bullying. First, I would like to add trauma-informed care. And second, I would like to add restorative justice programs. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, Chair for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members voting on HCR 52, HR 41, the chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments related to the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any noes or reservations? Recommendation adopted.
Thank you, Chair. Voting on HCR 53, HR 42, recommendation is to pass as is. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, Chair Woodson for the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the voting on HCR 53, HR 42, the chair's recommendation is to pass unamended, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any reservations or no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to HCR 54, HR 43, recommendation is to pass as is. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, Chair Woodson for the vote.
Thank you, members voting on HCR 54, HR 43, noting the excused absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any noes or reservations? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to HCR 55 HR 44. Recommendation is to defer this measure until our next committee hearing. Due to some of the testimony, I would like to present a new draft to the members, and we will defer decision-making till the next committee hearing. Okay, so moving on to HCR 60 HR 49, recommendation is to pass with amendments. On page 2, line 13 through 25, I'm recommending that we combine the first two resolution clauses to make it clear that the point of the resolution is to call for a report on reducing unnecessary external contracts in the DOE. Also on page 2, line 32 through 35, I would like to add school principals to the advisory group called for by this resolution by adding the exclusive representative for bargaining unit 6 HDEA to the group, since principals are responsible for implementing external contracts at the school level. And other than that, we will be adding other tech amendments for clarity. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, Chair Woodson for the vote.
Thank you, members. Voting on HCR 60, HR 49, the chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excludes absence of Representative Yamane. Members, are there any reservations or no? Thank you. Any other reservations or no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. We are adjourned.